This presentation is part of the McMaster Demystifying Medicine seminar series.
Hello everyone, today we'll be looking at the devices that were used by deep water divers in the delivery of oxygen. We'll look at some history and see how the development of these devices helped advance and propagate so many of the activities that we enjoy today. Enjoy! Depth and duration have always placed limitations on human diving ability. Pumps were eventually invented by Edmund Halley, which would overcome pressure barriers at deep water levels to deliver air to metal domes or helmets that would provide deep water workers with the oxygen they needed to work longer and more productively underwater. The invention of caissons, huge cast iron tubes that were sunk below a riverbed during the construction of a bridge foundation, followed soon after. The workers, however, were observed to experience symptoms after resurfacing above sea level such as excruciating itching of the kin, painful joints, and painful muscle swelling. These issues were later subject to investigation by John Scott Haldane.
During a typical dive, air was pumped into a diver's helmet at a pressure greater than the surrounding water. There was an exhaust valve which supplied fresh air and removed carbon dioxide. However, when working at depths below 20 meters, divers felt exhausted and sometimes lost consciousness. They also experienced decompression sickness, also called the bends, when they resurfaced. It was later discovered that bends was caused by nitrogen bubbles dissolving in tissue at high depths and released when the diver resurfaces. J.S. Haldane believed that the symptoms at large depths were caused by high pressures of carbon dioxide which accumulate in the helmet due to insufficient venting. He discovered at a depth of 20 meters, the pressure of carbon dioxide increases to 3% of the air or higher in the helmet. At high pressures, carbon dioxide is known to act as a narcotic, and during his time, carbon dioxide had been used frequently as an anesthetic or in electroconvulsion therapy for psychiatric disorder. To address these problems, Haldane improved the pump and created rules for delivery of air to remove all carbon dioxide in the helmet in different situations during the dive. For example, at great depths, he devised a method of absorbing CO2 to eliminate its accumulation.
Haldane discovered three principles that furthered our understanding of the bends. First, he discovered that different tissues have different carrying capacities for nitrogen, with fat having 6 times that of blood. He also discovered that the rate of exit of nitrogen from a tissue is dependent on its blood flow. This explains why great divers have low body fat. It also explains the neurological symptoms behind the bends, as nerves are constantly surrounded by fat. Most importantly, Haldane discovered that the volume of nitrogen released equaled half that of the surrounding pressure. Based on this relation, it was determined that longer, deeper dives should have a longer ascent time, with the diver moving slower as they approached the surface. Haldane was able to calculate appropriate ascent times for a variety of depths. Amazingly, Haldane's calculations have stood the test of time and resemble diving protocol to this day.
Haldane's stoppage tables tell a diver how much time should be taken to rise to the surface depending on the depth of the dive. The subjects in these studies, which were first goats and then humans, endured great depths for long periods of time to complete these charts. To give you an example from the table, if we dive to a depth of 20 meters for less than 20 minutes, the table tells us that we have to spend 2 minutes at 20 meters before resurfacing. However, if we go to 60 meters for an hour, the ascent takes 4 hours. The greater the depth and the amount of time underwater, the more time has to be spent during the ascent. Robert Davies invented a chamber which divers could enter during these long ascents. Up to 3 divers can enter this chamber through a trap door at the bottom where they sit and wait while it ascends to the appropriate depths for the appropriate amount of time. Haldane's tables are still used today. When divers experience symptoms, they are returned to depths where symptoms disappear, or they are placed into hyperbaric chambers until they can tolerate atmospheric pressure once again. In some situations, such as escapes from submarines at great depths, extremely rapid decompression may occur. This leads to extensive bubble formation in blood vessels and can sometimes block them altogether. Such blockages are known as emboli. Bubbles in the lungs can lead to severe shortness of breath or the chokes, and the deformation of the lung may cause air to escape into the pleural space. This is known as pneumothorax. These conditions can only be treated by recompression, that is, reapplying the high pressures found deep underwater.
Further symptoms of rapid ascent from dives are known as the bends and involve joint and skeletal pain. Divers can sometimes experience abnormal behavior while underwater, such as offering their air tube to passing fish. These effects have been attributed to larger quantities of nitrogen becoming dissolved in the brain.
The key take-home message from this chapter is this: when it comes to diving, things can go wrong very suddenly and become life-threatening within seconds. Thus, it is important to use appropriate equipment and exercise caution when exploring the depths.
We hope you were able to learn more about the devices used for helping divers, both underwater and back on land, as well as become more curious about all that there is to see and discover underwater.
If you want to learn more, please click follow and subscribe. Check out our Facebook page or visit our website at demystifyingmedicine.ca.